Hope you're doing pretty well, and thanks for joining in. Yeah, so I'm on time, like I'm supposed to be as a proper German. uh, Hi, Lector, how are you doing? Yeah, today we will talk about like a very broad topic with like a lot of like options. But like I would just give my opinion how, in my opinion, yeah, like how I structure my modes. Basically, let's put it this way. And yeah, I would tell you where this is basically just my opinion, where you could like explore other options, and where this might not make as much sense. But it's more my opinion, and this is if you use like the configuration in MPF, you can also like write your modes in code, for example. That's no issue whatsoever. And if you want like really special logic, that's often a little bit easier. If you want like the standard stuff, which most pinball machines do, then the configuration in MPF will probably be fine for you and will just work. And yeah, I will just we will go over it, and I will explain a little bit, and afterwards, yeah, I create an agenda. Wait. Yeah, we will like talk about how like a usual pinball machine, how the logic, how the flow in a machine is, like on modern machines, like since like 2000 or something, not the really old machines, not like the old EM machines. They're a little bit different or easier. But like how does it work in normal or in modern machines? And then we will like talk about how mode selection or mode qualification, which usually goes kind of hand in hand in most machines, how that works. And then I will talk a little bit on how to structure this in MPF, and then I will show how I did that in my machine. I will explain you like the logic in my machine. And if you got questions, feel free to ask anytime. We can go into that. And like if Anthony comes back, he did like really crazy stuff with custom code. But yeah, most of it can probably also be done in configuration. But yeah, it really depends on how crazy you want to be. So start. Yeah, like this is, I mean, it's a super simple image, and I first thought it would be much more complex. But most machines really work this way. So first you got like some attract mode with fancy lights. You press the start button, and then the game starts, and you end up in some kind of mode qualification or mode selection. And this, yeah, there are different ways to do that. And then after that, you like go into a certain game mode. Usually there is just one mode in most machines. And then once you complete that mode, you basically go back into the selection mode. And oftentimes you cannot reselect the same mode, but sometimes you can. It depends a little bit how this qualification selection mechanism works in that game. And then usually you start the next mode and the next mode and the next mode. And then, yeah, I don't know. I would say around 6 to 8 modes. And then you reach some kind of wizard mode, which is, I mean, it's just another game mode, but it has a fancy name. And technically, I mean, it works the same. And a lot of machines even go back from the wizard mode to the mode selection, and then the game starts over. I mean, some machines like DNA, they end, and I guess there are a few more which end, but I would say like 90% just go back. to mode selection. I mean, sometimes there's like one selection mode, like then 5 or 6 modes, and then you finish that and you get a wizard mode, and then there's a new selection with new mode, and then it's a wizard mode again. But oftentimes this is more or less like the same modes with just different requirements. You have to shoot them more often. But I mean, this is the general structure in my opinion, and that's what what's different in a modern machine versus like an EM machine. So in EM machines, yeah, everything can be basically shot at any time, and there's maybe some qualification for multi-ball, but there's not much like depth in the rules, right? And like if it goes to like this mode selection and qualification, there are like I would say 2 general types. One is like something like, I don't know, like Star Trek, or also I think, yeah, Star Trek, for example, where you in the beginning you can select which mode you want even before you launch the ball, right? You can select it with the flipper fingers, or like I think on Iron Maiden, for example, it's the same. You select your mode, you launch the ball, the mode starts up, and yeah, then you're in your first mode. And once you finish that, you go back to the mode selection, and then often you just have to shoot some mission hole. Maybe sometimes like on, for example, on how it's called, like the Jack Jersey game, like Died In, where you have to like charge your phone again, basically to qualify again, and then you start the next mode selection, and you can select the mode on this nice phone on your machine, then start that mode, and then it goes again and again and again. And once you did all the modes, there's a wizard mode. And then there are others, like for example Batman, where you like where there's no selection really. It's more like if you shoot the crane, I think initially once, then the crane mode starts and everything else is basically blocked. I mean, you cannot qualify more modes while this crane mode is running. And then after you finish the crane, you can do, for example, Joker or the Batmobile mode. And that's like the other way, right? And that's often this way that you can have to shoot like have to make a shot like 3 times, and then the mode starts, for example. And that's like another type of game, right? And oftentimes you find like certain designers, especially if you look at the Stern games, certain designers like either the selection style or the qualification style mode. And it's like what like most of the games are really similar on how you start modes. And sometimes, I mean, there are like slight differences, right? Sometimes you can like qualify other modes while multi-balls are running, or even if in certain modes you can qualify other modes. Sometimes there's also stuff like where you can start 2 modes at once if they are not overlapping, but I mean sometimes this also goes wrong in games. Especially, I mean, like when you can start multiple multi-balls and so on, and then everything stacks. But that's like kind of complex, and you have to think in advance what can start when. And usually there's only one main mode. So there's one main mode which is running, and the other thing is more like side modes or multipliers which are running nearby. They might be stopped in certain modes because it would be like too easy, or they would be annoying, or they interfere with the mode. But usually they run the whole time. And there's only one main mode which is running. It's like you have to think how you want to do that in your game, and it's not that easy, and because there are like a lot of subtle differences how you can do that. And then like if you in either of those two, doesn't really matter. you got like your 5 modes, you got one done, and then like usually there's like a round where you have to like do all the 5 modes, then a wizard mode, and then all the 5 modes start or are available again. You can qualify them again. It's a little bit harder to qualify them. The mode is a little bit harder. And then there's like 3 rounds very often times, and then you reach the final wizard mode. Sometimes it's not this way. This is like again a decision which you can make. I think like is it Star Trek? I think it's Star Trek where you can stack modes and you can start like one mode 3 times before you start the second mode the first time, and that's simply different. And I think there are also like as a wizard mode if you got like one mode 3 times and so on. And so there are like a lot of different styles. Then you got like this concept of failing or succeeding modes. So sometimes like modes are timed. So like you got 30 seconds, like 30 pinball seconds, which is like 45 seconds in real time usually. So like it just runs, time in pinball just runs a little bit slower. And if the mode times out, you fail, or if you didn't, usually if you didn't make certain combos or you didn't do enough shots, then a mode might fail. And that's also a concept which is available in a lot of machines, and they differ in what happens if you fail. So sometimes you can just restart the mode over again later. You have to requalify and restart it, and then you can succeed later. Sometimes, like for example on Monster Bash, there if you fail, the mode is done, but you failed. You didn't get like the monster light. And I think you need like a certain number of monster lights to reach the wizard mode. And if you fail too many modes, you won't reach the wizard mode. Or like I think on Return from Mars, it's the same, where you got like the UFO lights, UFO lights, and if you need like I think 10 or 8, I'm not sure. And you got a lot of modes in that machine, and you do not have to succeed on all of them, but like on a certain number. So that's also something to take into account. Like that's your game design, and that's basically what makes your rules deep in your machine, right? Not about just getting a lot of score, but it's reaching a certain goal, and it has to be somehow interesting. There should be different paths, or there might be different paths to the goal, and that's like what you as a game designer have to think about. But you probably know that if you played a lot of pinball. So how does this look in MPF? So I personally recommend the following: have like one qualification or selection mode, and that starts on game start, or if you do like if you select the first mode on launch of the first ball, then after that mode. But you start this mode, then it has like certain counters for qualification of your scoop or certain ramps or whatever, some shots. And once you qualified, there's usually like some shot you have to make to start it, either like your mission hole or just the ramp which was used for qualification. And when that happens, this mode stops. So it's stopped, and the game mode actually starts. And once the game mode is done, the qualification mode restarts. That has like the advantage that all the light shows and whatever you did, that disappears. So that is just unloaded in MPF, and you do not have to worry about stopping your shows or any sounds which are still playing, because usually like your mode has its own music and the qualification music should stop and so on. Sometimes you have to think about like what happens with like lights which are used for modes which are already done, and that should then not be inside the qualification mode. There should be like some status mode which controls just the status LEDs of like which modes have been completed or so or such. It's like the disadvantage. You have to split this. You could also like keep this mode running, but in general, in my opinion, it's a little bit harder to get that right. Because if you stop it, then you have to be sure, or you have to make sure in the beginning that restarting this mode actually works. Because I mean, if your player loses his ball and another player is up and this player starts again, you have to also restore the state of this mode. So it's generally good to have this mode like stoppable at any time. And once you started the mode, it's simple. Game modes will just be started by this qualification mode. Qualification mode posts some event. This mode starts, and afterwards it stops again. And now you have to like somehow. Usually you have to like tell the qualification mode if this game mode succeeded or not. And there are like multiple ways to do that. That's the simplest way. I will show you. It's a little bit tricky. I'm not sure if it's documented well. Is with an event. You can like basically send parameters to the event which will restart the qualification mode. I'll show you that. And you can have like parameter which mode just stopped and if it succeeded or not. Alternatively, you could like use a player variable. That's also possible if you want to like signal like multiple variables. And I don't know, if you count like some item in this mode, then you would want to do this like in a player variable, and that can like influence the decision on the qualification mode, for example. So that's your ways to signal like state or to keep state between the two. And that's also like kept between balls. So yeah, you can persist that. And yeah, if you stop this mode, like qualification restarts. And that's basically how it works. Sounds super simple. In practice, it's sometimes a little bit tricky. But if you do it this way, it will generally work. Wizard mode is basically exactly the same, which is why I did not do another slide. It works exactly the same, except that maybe at the end it might stop your game instead. But otherwise, it's the same. And that's all already for what I wanted to like talk about like in theory. And now let's like go into like the practical part with a demonstration of my IDE. And my IDE looks like that. That's the unit test from last time. Yeah, I mean, maybe if you got any questions already, then feel free to ask now, and that would be maybe a good point. If not, I would just go on. Okay, so as you may know, my machine is like a head-to-head machine, so like it's a two-player game, and we can just start it for a minute so that you can see how this works. So that's basically my machine here. A lot of stuff popping up. So you got like two play fields, which are now here next to each other, but in reality they are like they are opposite to each other, but like on the monitor they're not. And each player is like on one player is here and the other player is like here, and they fight each other. And but both players can like select modes separately, so they can have different modes active. And each mode can also influence, some modes influence the other player as well. So it's like this way in the machine. And just imagine that, and I will just show you like the mode qualification on one side. So the other one is just it's exactly the same. But I will just show you the stuff for one machine or for one playfield. So my qualification mode is like qualify front, and I got qualify back for the other side, and it's just a copy of that. And this starts when the ball is starting. And yeah, it stops when like this event is posted at single mode front start. And this will basically post it every time a mode starts. In my machine is super simple. So like you got like 8 shots or 7 shots, 7 or 8, depending how you count. Like the orbit or this ramp, that's a ramp which returns, or like this ramp, the toy, and so on. And usually you just have to make the shot 3 times. Let me demonstrate it once. It's simple. So machine starts, and we will add some balls here. It will balance the balls to the other side. We did that. Let's press start. Now I will get some music. Turn it down. And now, for example, now this isn't flashing, right? And now I can make this shot once. Now 2 is flashing, and now 3 is flashing, and next time the mode actually starts. And like on this side, I can, for example, start the blue mode here. So make this shot once, twice, and now this mode started. And now I have to shoot apparently this target here, and then the scoop, and so on. So like those two work independently. And yeah, we can look at that. So that's actually how this works. It's super simple. It's just counters. So if you look at this mode, it's just a bunch of counters. There's also like an accrual, which is basically you have to make all of those. That's what I use to qualify for wizard mode at the end. But let's first look at this. So, for example, the shot I just shot, the yellow one, that's this one, left orbit. Yeah, I even documented it with the color. And yeah, it's basically a counter which counts to 3, and it has a certain event. It's just the shot, which is the 2 switches on the orbit. That's basically in this machine, that's to make sure that you actually made the orbit this direction, because you can also make the orbit the other way around. And I only want to count shots which make it this direction, so the right clockwise turn, not counterclockwise, because that would be like another shot. So I define shots first, and those shots will like post this event: shot feeder front, shot orbit left front hit, and maybe I can even show it. Not sure. Yeah, autocomplete for the win. Can even go there. So this is basically the shot. The switches. You got 1 second to make from one switch to the other switch. And that's basically how this works. And you can see like for the opposite playfield, it's the same. So that event triggers this counter, and it counts up. It's relatively simple. And you got like those two. It's like persist state true. That's like important. Otherwise, like if the mode would restart, it would lose the state. it would start at 0 again. So that's something some machines do that. So they say, well, you have to like requalify on the next ball, or even after a mode. So you'd have to make the 3 shots in one go. But I do not want that, so I set this to true, so it will restore the previous state. And I also do not want to reset it on when it's complete, so it stays at 3, because like I got in a restart event, that's if the wizard mode has been completed, I will reset it. So it's relatively simple. And yeah, when this one is completed, I post start feeder mode from, which, as you can imagine, will start the mode. Can the persist be applied to drop targets, assuming you have the ability to raise or drop individually? Currently, no, but you could do that if you. So if I wanted to do that, I would go. I do not have one. I would use a state machine for that. So state machine is I will probably do different stream just in state machines, because they can do a lot of stuff. And if you didn't study computer science, you probably do not know how powerful they are. But a state machine is something which can have can keep arbitrary state and have arbitrary transitions between states when certain stuff happens. And for example, you could say we got a state machine which has some states, I think, and first one has to have the name drop down. Then we have name correct. Expected a dictionary. Okay, then it's probably this way. Drop down. And now it has that one. Can I autocomplete that? Expected a dictionary. I probably have one somewhere, but we can also look it up. So what I would do is I would have a state machine, and then when the mode restarts, post an event to restore the drop target at that point, and use that to restore reality, if you know what I mean. So first we track state, and then we restore state. State machines. Check the manual. So let's just take this one. Let's take a simple state machine. So we got start step, then we got drop up, and we got drop down. And we could then do it like this. First, we got a start step that happens when this state machine is actually is starting, and we would usually do something mode qualify front started. So at the beginning we would transition into drop up, for example, and yeah, we can have shows and everything, but it can't autocomplete. Why is that? I don't know. yeah, we can again set persist state here, so it will persist the state. And we have like this event when started, event when started. And yeah, right. And now we would like do the following. Now, like we would say, here we would say persist state true. So this state machine would persist its state. And now, like if you restart your mode, it would start up in, like, just ignore this for a minute. It would start up like in, for example, in the state drop up, but the drop might be down. And to make sure that this actually isn't an issue, we would have like something source, like that's basically a transition, and we can have a transition for drop up, and then we could like do, either we could do this unconditionally, events when transitioning, and and basically this will happen when like the mode qualify front started. And that's basically if it's in the stop start state drop up, and this event is posted because the mode is started, then we would like post reset drop target, for example. And then we would have like target, it would like go to the same mode again, to the same state again. So it would like stay in the state, but would like reset the drop. And we could like do the same for the down targets. So that's like reset, yeah, or like knockdown, for example, would be like your event. And this would make sure that like if the mode is restarted and this state machine and this is in this state, it would post this event once, restore or like knockdown or reset your drop target to the state you want it to be. Yeah, that's actually that's how this would work. And you could theoretically have like some conditions here, but I think drop targets will not knock down if they are already down, and they will not reset if it's already up. But that is also like something you can do, and that's also something which is very useful. For example, if you just want to restore like some shows or music or a toy, for example, if you want to have a toy in a certain state, that's a way you can do that. And this can, I mean, that's just basically, if you look like at traffic lights, that's how you control traffic lights. Like there's more to it, but in general, if like any of this automation technique in large factories and so on, that's usually how they work. So there's certain event somewhere, and then if it's in the right state, do this. So this is something, and this is how you could do that, for example. When running multiple modes, what are some things people be aware of with regards to competing priorities with blocking, logic, or anything else? In general, I mean, multiple modes, if you want multiple game modes, that's tricky. I mean, it's not that a lot of machines do that. Most machines only give you like one mode. And if you have multiple modes running, that might like indicate that like the mode selection could be improved. If you have to do it, yeah, you usually in a lot of pain, to be honest. You have to think about any eventualities, which events could happen, which I do not want, and so on. Sometimes, like, sometimes you do this for like some scoring stuff where you have like in your base mode, which is always running, you got like some scoring for a certain switch, and then in another mode you want to have a higher score and want to inhibit the score. And that's where you can have like blocking. And you can block any events. There's like a section for that in MPF. I think it's called blocking. And you can just tell it to block certain events for lower modes. That's something you can do, but I mean, there's a lot of complexity and dependencies between modes. And I would try to just think about in advance and not stack modes in a lot of ways. In multiboards, yeah, you sometimes have that, right? Where you have like multiple multiboards running like at the same time. But usually you got a mode, and then at the end you got some multiball. And sometimes you can start you can start another multiball as well, and then like the scoring of both of them is active. But most of the times, like the jackpot is on different shots, for example, and yeah, I mean it's in my opinion more like a thing of planning how you want to do that, and if it makes sense to have them at once. And yeah, for completing priorities, yeah, at the moment, like you can have like shows, and the mode with a higher priority will take preference for your lights, but that's basically per light. So if you have one show which blanks the whole playfield, and the another mode only uses like 10 LEDs, those would be on top, like of those of the show which blanks all the lights, and it would only have a higher priority on those few lights, right? Not on all of them. So it's not like a global priority of shows. It's per light, for example. And that, I mean, that sometimes looks fishy if you have too many shows running, but it happens on Stearns also, right? Sometimes there are like two shows running and then it looks weird for 2 seconds, but well, the player won't care in most of the times, I think. Not sure if you got anything specific. I can probably show stuff. Oftentimes you can do it like with conditional events. Sometimes you can say, well, if this show starts, you can have like a condition, do not start it if this mode is also running, or don't know. It's hard to tell this in general, I think, at least for me. I'm not sure. That's your suggestion. The maximum number of modes that can be running at once. 1. I mean, not sure they can, more modes can run, but just I mean, even at some point, like the player will stop to understand what's happening, right? I mean, you shoot something and then the mode starts, and that's something you get. But then, I mean, at least for me, it's like I play multiball on a machine and sometimes another multiball starts. Most of the times, I do not know why it happened, and also I do not know what to do in this other multiball, and that I only know if I played this machine like 5,000 times. So like there are few machines where I know what happened, and like yeah, for very deep rule sets and very professional players that makes sense, but like for the occasional player, they probably won't understand that. And so, yeah, like it's a good question. So what to do during multi-ball? Yeah, sometimes you can let's think about it for a minute. Like on Batman, for example, you can during multi-ball you can still qualify for other modes. and you can also like start other modes, but not in all combinations. So doesn't work like on all modes. So in some modes you can qualify, in others you can't. So I guess in some modes they just keep like the qualification running because this mode is not so special. So that's something you could do, but yeah, you just have to like separate the modes. So the ones which stop qualification and it's those which are not so invasive so that they can like run nearby. And they just block or they just use certain shots. And another thing that can be valuable regarding sounds is the max queue time and designated audio channels to prevent callouts from overlapping when multiple modes are doing things. Yeah, for callouts, I guess just have like queue depth one, so there should be only one callout at a time. You can also add like timeouts, I think. So if it's waiting for too long, the timeout will just be dropped. So that makes that makes it nicer. And for like SFX, so like your like hitting sounds or something for hitting a target, there you might allow like 2 or 3 concurrent sounds, but nothing more. After that, it should be dropped, otherwise it will become messy. Does something like a skill shot make sense to be its own mode? This way you can start it on both start and unload stop it once it's complete. Yes, definitely do it as an own mode. That's like, it's not that I said there can be only one mode. Like there could be one like game mode for the player. It's one thing what you can model as mode in MPF. For example, you can have like a mode which controls a certain toy, for example, or you can have a mode which animates something or shows stats on the playfield using lights. That's very usual to have like 3 or 4 modes running next to like your game. For example, this is the monitor from my machine, and that's how many modes are just running, and that's a lot of modes. And but those are not game modes. So we got like ball handling that does ball balancing between troughs. We got like that's for completing the lane target, the lane lights, right? And then there's like a mini achievement if you make the lane lights. That's the actual game mode. Then there are like one for the pop bumpers, which is running all the time. You can collect them all the time. There's some, some gadget modes which just happen occasionally. Mode overview, that's to illuminate which modes are available, which were completed. You got your lane, your upper lanes, which you are above your pops, those lanes. And again, you can complete them almost, I think you can complete them all the times. That's like, again, some lights, that's for the toy. Again, other targets and so on. So like then we got some tilt special modes. So you can have a lot of modes. That's not an issue, but for the player, there's usually just one mode he starts, because otherwise it gets like it gets complicated for novice players, like non-professional players. And there are not that many professional pinball players in the world. Should be fun for normal people too. So yeah, that's also what Anthony wrote. Yeah, that's actually what I wrote, so I didn't read that, but yeah, you're right. Exactly, that's the same. So you can have like quite a few modes. You can have like multiple modes with the same priority. I mean, for me it's like it's the front back, so they are other sides and they will not target the same lights. So that's not like there's no particular order because they won't overlap in this machine. Usually it makes sense to have different priorities for different modes. But here you can see that's okay, this one actually has the same, but those are like internal modes. yeah, it makes sense to have like an absolute order between the modes. Otherwise, yeah, it might like one time the one overlaps and then the other overlaps. So it might be like random depending on some internal stuff. So I would suggest to not have the same priorities if possible. And this one is like a little bit special. So what's next? So now we got like the special drop target stuff. We got like those counters. And now I wanted to show you how see how that works. I can have auto completed. No, I can't. Not left orbit mode front. Left orbit front. This. And this mode, as you would imagine, is like it starts with like this event, and then my modes are simple. I mean, you got like a sequence of shots you have to do, and you usually got like two options to shoot, except on the last one, which is the same one which we so my modes. At the end, you always make the same shot as the one which was used to qualify the mode. It's just, I don't know. I wanted it this way, and that's how it is now. And this also, yeah, and then basically it posts this event, and now there's something special again. I use an event player to relay this event. So this event here will go into this event player, which will then post single mode front done. Like one event, which has already been used here to start this mode again. So that's single mode front done. Yeah, this one. And that will start the qualify mode again at the end. And I add a parameter, which is like completed, and it's left orbit. And you can put like as many parameters as you want here to this event. And those will be relayed to this mode qualify front started event. So that's basically the one which is posted when this mode is started. And then I use that to know what actually caused the start of this mode. So here, for example, yeah, this may be for, do I use it anywhere? I think I use it somewhere, but not here. Here I use it, for example, if wizard has been completed to reset those. I think I used that in another mode, which is like mode overview right here. And that will just indicate which mode has been done somewhere. Was it? Oh, no, it doesn't. I got some mode somewhere. I have to find it. I would have thought that is this one, but apparently it's not. Ah, no, I do differently. I just use the counter. I just use the counter. And because the mode cannot fail in my machine, I just use the counter. But I could also like use this, basically this call back, like the event back, to trigger logic on that and have certain stuff happen here. And that again, if you can use like a state machine, you can have counters. This one is really, really simple, but that's also like how it works like in a lot of machines. And yeah, like there are like a lot of ways to do stuff, but that's just the techniques you can use for that. To signal this back and forth. You could also use like, as I told you, I could also do like a player variable and check a player variable here. And in this way, yeah, I always go back into this mode And when all of the modes are done, then and this one starts, then yeah, like if all of the modes are done, then the wizard mode qualify starts, right? And then there's a shot where you can actually start it. So that's how I do it with the wizard mode. So yeah, right. So if all modes were started, right? Yeah, when all modes are complete. Other way. Yeah, here I use it. So this is now I got it. Sorry. So this is basically the start event of this mode with the parameter from the mode. So like from left to the front, it will post this single mode front done with this completed event. That will then start this mode with this event. And here I wait for basically all modes to complete. And when that happens, I instantly go into wizard mode. So that's how this works. And then when wizard mode stops, it will post like same stuff. It will again do the same here. It will post this event again and complete it wizard. And that will then reset all the counters here. In my machine, it's not even getting harder on the second run, but that could, for example, cause like another counter to increase, and then we could have like the count complete value based on the new counter, or we could have like a second qualification mode if it's fundamentally different, which then start at that point. But that's basically how you do this kind of qualification style mode, which I got in my machine. Yeah, you can also like use like achievements if you want. That's also a way. Or if you like achievements, they got like they're like a state machine with certain states. So they got like enabled, started, and completed. I think they can also fail and then go back to started. But that's like their general flow. But if you like want more special flows, you can always use a state machine. That's very, very powerful. Or if you want it really simple, use a counter or some other logic block. Like that. And that like can recreate, I would guess, like 90-95% of the ways it's done in pinball machines. There might be really strange logic in some machines which you cannot directly translate here. I mean, with a state machine, you can do theoretically everything, but might be very complex. So sometimes it's just easier to do it in code. But I mean, most machines, most ways, just work out of the box. Yeah, and that's basically what I wanted to show in my machine. Any performance considerations with the way modes are structured? Not really. So this, I mean, this is relatively cheap. So unless you want to start a mode like 500 times per second, then you might to think about how you do it. But this is like, I mean, it will start a mode, even if that is taking like 100 milliseconds, which would be really a lot, and it would really surprise me if it was that slow. And then that wouldn't be noticeable, I guess. So no, not really. So you can like, for this logic stuff, you can do a lot of stuff until it gets slow. I'm not aware that anybody made it slow this way. So there are ways to make it slow, and that's mostly if you trigger logic based on switch hits. So if you just like take the S start, no, maybe not start, but something event player, something like S No, it's not. Can it auto-complete it? I mean, if you take like the active event from a switch and then trigger a logic block based on that, and that then triggers 2 more logic blocks and a show. And then I don't know, something really flaky happens on that switch. Like it gets like 100 hits per second for some reason because I don't know, the wire is broken. That might actually slow you down. I've seen this happen with a lot of logic, but then it's usually like something shouldn't have triggered it. And a good idea to prevent this is to use like a shot first. So if you got like something like this will basically prevent all those crazy events. So just you can also like use debounce on your switches. You can have like timeouts here, and this will prevent you from triggering your logic like 500 times a second. But even then, if you would put like a switch here, well, then it would be 3 times. This logic block would be completed, and afterwards the other mode would start. Might not be nice because it might like just be like a few repeated events on the switch, and you want the player to make the shot 3 times. So sometimes like a shot with a timeout is nice, or it's nicer, but it wouldn't break your machine in any way, I think. So yeah. Yeah, I even got like some modes which go for which affect 2 players. You might have noticed that I got like this event here also that looks similar, but it will basically stop the qualify mode of both players. And afterwards, this event will start it again. So that's similar, but just for 2 players. But it's special to my machine. Can you discuss the process to replace or extend built-in MPF modes such as high score? I want to extend the high score mode to use segment display instead of slides for the initial entry. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. And yeah, so what you can do is, I probably did that somewhere. Let me see. I can show you how to override the game, but that's special. For high score, no, I didn't. But in general, you can set like the code path here, and that's basically the Python import path in your machine. So head-to-head game, that's my code path, and that's basically inside this mode. And you can just import the mode, like high scores, for example, and then subclass it. So that will work, I guess, for like the segment displays. That might make sense to have that inside MPF as well. And I guess we should like have an option for the high score mode to have multiple input ways, right? Because we got segment displays, we got DMDs, and we got like modern LCDs, and like the slide structure is also a little bit different on those large LCDs versus DMDs, but not as much, right? But we should like have a different default set for LCDs than for DMDs, because currently it doesn't look that great on an LCD, in my opinion. And we might have like better default slides for all of those. And maybe we can have, I don't know, some setting in your game, so where you can set like it's a DMD game, it's an LCD day game, it's a segment display game, it's an EM game with nothing. And then we can basically check that in logic in a lot of places, because that would allow us to make modes more generic. Does it make sense? But if you want to overload it or override it, you can do it this way. So you can, yeah, you have to set like code path here, and then overload any methods. The problem is like if you update MPF, I mean, but to all the others, we might change like the structure of the mode, and then this mode might no longer exist, for example. And then you have to adjust. So then that's something which is not as nice in custom code, right? If you upgrade MPF, stuff might change. There are some methods in modes, like in normal modes, not in like those built-in modes like high scores or game, which you can override safely. They won't change. We basically keep as an external API part, like in a game mode or high score, that might change. And this is like my machine mode. That's a lot different than a normal game, but that is because I have like balls for each side and ball tracking is different and so on. But I think I got like one mode in my machine, and that's the game mode. It's the only mode with code. And I got like no, I got another one. Yeah, that's like I got a mode where at the end I want to drain the balls on both sides, and that I needed code for that as well. But that's basically the mode is just in config, but this draining the balls at the end, that's yeah, that's in code. But it's just like this mode, and it's not that much. So basically you can have this mode start method, that's the generic one. And then I got some custom methods here. And I think I got like some scriptlets or custom code sections as well. But that's more like for displaying the lives of the players. And the other one is just for when I test stuff. I always put it into that one. But there's not much custom code in my machine, so just a little bit, and that's usually also the only thing I have to touch when I upgrade MPF from time to time. So yeah, that's roughly what it is in my machine. Quinn, that's something where MPF could become even better. Put it this way. But yeah, I like that you want to extend high scores for segment displays. That's awesome. I will probably do like stream on Saturday on segment displays, where I can show all the stuff which Quinn built, like the transition stuff for segments. It's super nice, even with color and like with a virtual segment display. I want to set it up and show it. So if you're interested in that, join in Saturday. And there will be like probably more with segment displays there. That's awesome. I like that. Thanks for investing time in that, Quinn. So yeah, that's basically all I got, or all I wanted to show. You got any more questions? That would be good point in time to ask them. And otherwise, I would say have a great day. And I'm not sure, but for me, it's like it's a public holiday tomorrow, so it's free for me. And I got holiday on Friday, so it's great. A lot of time for picking MPF, reviewing some pull requests. We got some outstanding ones. Fixing bugs from my list. There's some stuff. And I hope the weather will be good, but we will see. So enjoy your remaining day today and the remaining week. I hope to see you on Saturday, but we will probably hear from each other in one of the many forums around. So yeah, have a great time. Keep on hacking pinball, and thanks for joining. See you next time.